going on, ladies and gents in Cyberland? So I'm coming back with finally my review of the Arkham Origins game that I recently played, or a while ago. Anyway, so let's get to it. So with Arkham Origins, I bought this game back in I think 2013, and I played it right when it came out because I was a huge fan of Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, of course. And I have to say, it wasn't a pleasant experience. And the reason why it wasn't for me was because I really couldn't do much of the game in regards to my abilities. I had come off of playing those two games where I really perfected my craft on how to play and how to keep from getting killed. Even though I get killed in any game I play, regardless of how many times I play it. And with this one, it just didn't flow. The gameplay for me just wasn't as great as the other ones, and I really ran through the game as quickly as I could just to be done with it because it just wasn't fun. It just didn't appeal to me as much as the other two. Also, please note that my gameplay is clipping a lot, or it clipped during my gameplay too, because I used a program called Twitch, which I'm sure probably works for other people, but it didn't work for me. So future games that I record will never be through that. I will be doing through using my my PC and laptops to do the job, to get what I need done, and external hard drives and all those kind of things. So in regards to Arkham Origins story, the game takes place 5 years before Arkham Asylum, and you kind of get an idea of this Batman is more rugged, not fully making the best choices or how to react to situations where he does in the later games. And my issue with that is I understand what they're doing with that, but then I think about when they came up with this game, did they correlate murder investigation? Did they coordinate the other Arkham characters in here, such as the people that work with Batman? Because Dick and of course Jason and Tim, I'm like, and then even Barbara, I don't think they really got down the timeline too well with this game. I think it would have been better to say this game was probably 10 years before Arkham Asylum, or maybe 15, just because certain things just don't correlate as well because of those other characters and such. As far as the villains, though, I think they did a great job with who they brought in here. I liked the interaction that we had with Edward, who eventually becomes the Riddler, as well as why Bane looks the way he does now in the other Arkham games as opposed to what he looked like in here. The interaction relationship between Batman and Gordon was great, because I think people sometimes interpret that they always had this great relationship. They were cool with each other. They respected each other. I'm like, that's not how it started out. It took a while for that to happen. That trust level to begin, because the city is corrupt, the police are corrupt, every infrastructure of Gotham is corrupt pretty much. So, as far as the combat system was fine with me for the most part. Here we go, glitching again. Fighting people on the street was perfectly fine. I didn't really have an issue. It felt natural like it did in the other game. And the one thing they implemented in here was eventually you get these gloves where you can electric shock people. I thought that was pretty cool because you can continue to do even a longer combo if you would like to. As far as the weapons in the game, I really didn't use too many of them this time around because they just, by the time I had them, they didn't serve the purpose that I needed them to, outside of finding stuff when it came to dealing with Riddler. When it came to dealing with some of his stuff, there wasn't really anything to where I was just like, yeah, I'd love to use this or love to use that. As far as Predator mode, I got killed a bunch of times playing Predator mode because Predator mode's never been my forte, and it's just not good at every single thing in the game. Some things take longer for me to do, and some things don't. My gripe, though, glitching again, my gripe with both combat and Predator mode was the fact that some of the abilities that the villains were using, I felt like okay, when you guys made these part of the game, did you pay attention to Arkham Asylum and City? Because when Asylum came out, they had certain type of weapons. And when City came out, they improved on those weapons. Well, in here, it's like you improved on the weapons from City, but I'm like, but wait a minute, this is before Arkham Asylum. So I know people say, well, it's a video game. Like, no, it's kind of the principle. You've set rules in the game to have it a certain way. Well, you can't kind of break those rules and try to make it seem like, okay, well, we had better weapons 10 years ago than what you have now. It's supposed to be improvement. So these guys should have been using stuff that was kind of before or not as good as what they start using in Asylum to an extent. Or, I guess because that was kind of annoying. Some of the stuff these guys were using, they had better capabilities than me. Now, when it came to, as we can see, the weapons and stuff, the reason why I didn't use the weapons too much is because they just, when I was getting them, I was pretty much more than halfway through the game. They weren't opening up to me. Like, I felt like with Asylum, City, and even Night, when you got the weapons and you were able to utilize them, they served the purpose when you needed them, like around those points in the game. This one, they just weren't giving you the stuff when you really needed it, or they weren't making it available to you when you could utilize it. And maybe that's just the way I played. Maybe I had a hand in that. But it just didn't, the weapons just didn't flow as well as the other three Arkham games. And I don't know, maybe that was the developers, because it was a separate team from the regular Arkham games. I don't know. But that was an irritation for me. The one thing that did, out of all the villains that got my attention, though, that I really enjoyed was the background of Penguin. It was cool to see that there is a little reason why this guy acts the way he does. When you visit where his hideout is and you see his family photos, that really did strike a nerve with me, because it shows that this guy is the way he is because of his parents. They didn't love him. And you can see in those photos up, and when you go there, you can see the photos on the walls that even though he loves his parents, he has a soft spot. But the reality is they didn't love him. And I think if they had loved him and accepted him, that, what happened to him was just, it wasn't his fault, I think he would have never became what he became. But, Gotham, unfortunately, is a festering pool of just misery that causes people to go astray. So the Deathstroke fight. So I think I fought Deathstroke maybe 15 times or something, and I only recorded maybe 3 or 4 times of getting my ass kicked. And it wasn't that it's a pride thing. It's just like, I'm not gonna record this many beatdowns at this point. It serves no purpose. I mean, I can admit that I did not beat this guy on the first try. I didn't even beat him on the 4th try. I think it was like 15 times or some shit, just because the combat with him was just extremely difficult, more than anybody else in the game. Matter of fact, I've had more difficulty fighting this guy than I ever did in any of the Arkham games, period. And I played all 4 of them, at least the ones out. And I never had this much of a problem. So I don't know if the schematics for the combat for this was done right. It's kind of like, when you have something like a challenge for a game, do you make it, was the setting right on that? Because I noticed when I fought him, out of everybody in the game, all bosses, all villains, he was the only one that gave me a problem. I mean, Bane was a little bit irritation, but that's because what you have to do, you can't fight him per se. But this guy was the only one that gave me a problem in the game. Yeah, I got killed other times, but when it came to like having to redo a part of the game multiple times, like more than maybe twice or 3 times, this guy, and Deadshot was a little bit of an issue, but that was because Deadshot was a Predator mode, and Predator modes, again, are not my forte. So when I lose in Predator modes, I don't really trip too much, because I know, like, no matter how many times I try to think you can control the outcome, you just can't. I think that's why one of the Asylum games, I think I spent like one Predator mode, I spent probably trying to finish that in 30 minutes or something. I spent like 30, 40 minutes because I couldn't get the guy to show up right where I needed him to get the challenge points I needed to get the achievement on City and Asylum. As far as the history of the game, as far as the police, as far as the city, I love that too. I love the fact that you see how everything was before Asylum, because these areas you come back to again in City, and it was just amazing how, and I got to give credit to the people that worked on this game. They did do their homework on this, or somebody came in and did their homework or brought something to the table, because you see the areas and what they looked like before City and Asylum. They looked more marvelous, I guess you could say. They looked more like a unit. They looked more clean. They looked more wholesome. They didn't look like what they became, where it's run down. It's like, man, you don't want to walk down here like this. And it's not, forget somebody being there might try to hurt you. I just think like this area might try to hurt you, like something might fall on you or something. That's how bad old Gotham became. It's just like, dude, don't even, just stay away. You know, that's just what it looked like. Now, in regards to my gripe with this game, my issue, and this is why I was so, I wanted to skip Ark. I wanted to get through this game so quickly the first time I played it. When you level up your abilities, as far as I'm concerned, you should be allowed to use your abilities. There shouldn't be, there we go, Barbara. There shouldn't be something saying you cannot use this unless you do this or X, Y, Z. If that's the case, then I shouldn't be allowed to level up the ability until I complete certain things. Well, when they came up with the schematics for this, they didn't tell you that. So more than halfway through the game, the most important ability to me is being able to use to take a weapon from a character and break it so they can no longer use it. Because most of the time you fight people, they're using a weapon on you. Well, if you can destroy the weapon, nobody else can use it. But if you just beat the guy up and he drops the weapon, somebody else can pick it up and still use it. Well, that ability was not available to me until pretty much, I'd say 70 to 85% of the game was complete, and that was only because I found out and I did some research that you have to complete a bunch of side missions to be able to, I believe it's Shiva, and you have to deal with one of Bane's cronies to get it. Which I had no problem with doing side missions. However, if that was the case, I would have done those side missions as soon as they popped up. So then, hey, I can use one of the most important abilities for me playing in the Arkham games as quickly as possible. Because by the time I was able to use that ability, I was done with the game. And then knowing what I knew at that point, I just was like, you guys kind of fucked this up, and this is not as fun as it could have been. Because the other games, you got the ability, you used the ability. And I think that was the other issue with this, is that by the time I was able to utilize a lot of the weapons and stuff, I just didn't care. They served no purpose at this point, because who I was fighting, how strong I was, and it was just like, I should have been able to use this stuff a lot sooner. And that's one thing, the difference between this game and the other games. When it came to my combos, I wasn't able to utilize all my weapons like it. And you will see that with the other Arkham games, that I have a way to where I can put all the weapons together in one combo and get a very good score. And it's not about the score, it's just being able to use the technology that I have. Whereas with this one, didn't happen. And by the time I had the ability to use it, I just didn't care. I was just like, you know what, let me finish up these missions just to complete them, and that's it. Let me go through all the side stuff and get it done and just be done with this. There wasn't, I wasn't as angry or as bitter about the gameplay and the overall, about the gameplay as I was the first time. Because the first time, I think I only completed the game on 30%. That's how disgusted I was. And playing it again, I have a better tolerance for the game, but I understand that why I felt the way I felt. It's just you walk in with a better understanding now. So, in regards to my rating for the game, I would give it 3.5. I think when I first played, I probably would have given it like a 2.5. But yeah, 3.5, I would give it higher, but because of those things and how that was incorporated into the game, I think that really messes up the gameplay for me. Story and stuff is cool, but this is Batman. He has abilities. You level him up. You should be able to use them right away. Would I suggest playing this game? If you want a little history lesson on Gotham and some of the characters, then yes, play the game. Make sure you do the side missions as quickly as possible when they pop up, as opposed to waiting. If you have the stuff to do it, then do it. But that's as far as it goes. And I have to say, I just found out too that apparently the same people that worked on this are working on Gotham Knights. That's got me kind of concerned. I hope it ends up being a more pleasant experience. Anyway, you guys have a good one. Talk to you later. Ciao.